$5,000 equity to open and maintain your account, and the minimum charge is just $48. Orders are executed during normal market hours. Call America's deep discount broker, First National Brokerage Services.
Business insiders will not be seen tonight, so that we may bring you this special edition of Money Politics, Campaign 92.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
There it is again, President Bush uttering those words 4 years ago, 6 words that are going to haunt him for probably the rest of his life. Tonight, the president tries to undo any damage that's been done, though. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Money Politics Campaign 92. I'm Bill Griffith. George Bush does stand before the American people tonight, a very different candidate than he was 4 years ago. In 1988, Michael Dukakis was his foe. This year, Bill Clinton is better organized than Dukakis was. Clinton is further ahead in the polls, and the economy is in much worse shape than it was 4 years ago. So the Republicans are hoping tonight's acceptance speech will give the president the critical boost he needs. In fact, GOP strategists are saying the speech is crucial to restoring the president's credibility on the economy, and close advisors to Mr. Bush say that he almost certainly is going to offer some kind of apology for how he has handled the economy up until now. When asked if the speech contains promises of a new tax cut, the president said, quote, "It has a lot of new ideas that we haven't tried before," end quote. Also new is the popularity bounce the president is getting. According to the latest Sindlinger survey, Mr. Bush's popularity edged up 5.5 points to just over 39%. That is up more than 7 points from the president's all-time low of 31.6% just 2 weeks ago. As for Dan Quayle, the vice president says he hopes Americans will give him a second look during his acceptance speech tonight. He hopes to lay to rest the Dan Quayle caricatures and show the country what he calls the real Dan Quayle. That as President Bush prepares to deliver what the GOP is calling the speech of his life, as Donald Vandermark reports.
The 41st president checked out the podium this morning and joked with reporters about what is and is not in his address. The exercise president compared the speech with sports.
There's a great similarity between politics and competitive athletics, or political speech like this. Adrenaline factor, I call it.
A fresh approach to problems, according to George Bush, it's in there.
New ideas?
Yes.
A lot of ideas that we want that haven't been tried.
Like
That's
what?
New. Make them new.
After 3 nights highlighting Bill Clinton's ideas, congressional intransigence, and Republican family values, many delegates hope Mr. Bush focuses on taxes and the economy.
He never shirks anything. He goes at it head on, and if he thinks he's made a mistake, he's big enough to say he made one and go on from there. And I think you can't expect anything more than that of a person.
Risky, but good advice. A Houston Chronicle Hotline newsletter poll finds traditional Republicans flocking home. Family values bringing back many Southern and Western voters. But Reagan Democrats, largely blue-collar workers, have not budged. They're more interested in jobs. Bush strategists are trying to find a way to turn Mr. Bush's foreign policy prowess into an economic credential.
That the 2 big issues in presidential campaigns are now one, peace and prosperity, and that a huge share of our foreign policy over the next several years is going to be economic, and almost every economic problem we have in this country and challenge has international implications.
So expect a strong pitch for the North American Free Trade Agreement. Also expect tough talk on taxes and spending. And when it comes to the economic record of the past 4 years, expect Mr. Bush to blame Congress. Donald Vandermark, CNBC, Money Politics, Houston.
Well, so far the economy is not cooperating with President Bush's final night of the Republican convention. The Labor Department said this morning that weekly claims for unemployment benefits rose last week to a 10-year high. But Labor Secretary Lynn Martin, who nominated the president last night, put her own spin on the economy, saying that America is better off now than it was 4 years ago. And earlier on CNBC, Fred Malek, who is one of the principals running the Bush-Quayle campaign, emphasized the president's desire to keep taxes low.
We do not want a tax increase. That's the difference between George Bush and Bill Clinton. We want to reduce taxes, stimulate the economy, and at the same time control spending and balance the budget. Clinton's talking about a massive tax increase and even more massive spending increases, and the budget will never come into balance with his program.
Speaking of the Arkansas governor, Bill Clinton did say today he expects President Bush to deliver a good speech tonight, but Clinton says the president's actions have already spoken louder than his words. Campaigning today in Michigan, Clinton said the president's promises of more jobs, improved education, and no new taxes have not been met during his time in office. And earlier today on the Today Show, Clinton also responded to recent Republican attacks against Hillary Clinton.
George Bush acts like he's running against Hillary. He ought to be. I don't think he's a candidate for First Lady, and he ought to just run against me and talk about where he disagrees with me.
On abortion, gay rights, family values, the Republicans are using this convention to try to demonstrate a deep divide between their nominee and Governor Clinton. But as our Brenda Buttner reports from Washington tonight, on some issues, the two candidates aren't that far apart.
George Bush wants to show that Republicans and Democrats don't speak the same language. He's all too aware that voters might not be able to tell the difference.
But on some issues, especially economic issues, I'm afraid we don't yet sound all that different.
But that's because on some issues, they aren't all that different. Both candidates say they can produce jobs through business tax credits, for investment, for research and development.
This will encourage businesses to accelerate investment and bring people back to work.
So that we can generate even more investments and create more jobs.
Both say incentives are also an answer to the problems of the inner city.
I support urban enterprise zones to give people incentives to invest in urban America.
Enterprise zones. There is an idea whose time has come.
You'll hear both candidates talk of responsibility when it comes to welfare reform.
Welfare was never meant to be a lifestyle.
Because welfare should be a second chance, not a way of life.
Both executives want the White House to have more control over the budget, supporting a line-item veto, and rely upon curbing government waste to finance other promises.
That there is a lot of money to save there.
We must get the federal spending under control.
But on that issue, you see more similarity not in what they would do, but what they won't do. Neither politician wants to get near the fastest growing part of the budget, entitlements such as Social Security, veterans benefits, farm price supports. Both largely depend on growth to erase the nation's record deficit. No surprise, really. In the presidential race, those candidates who came close to calling for cuts in entitlements either fell short or dropped out. And analysts argue that on this year's road to the White House, it's clear good politics collided with good policy.
The government's hands are tied between the economics of the deficit and the politics of not wanting to do the things that would reduce the deficit, and that forces everybody into the same corner.
But both candidates have come out of that corner throwing punches in a fight that promises to be bruising. Brenda Buttner, CNBC Money Politics, Washington.
When we come back tonight, the president's speech. What may be in store? Will there be a tax cut mentioned or spending restraints? We'll ask Senate Minority Whip and longtime friend of President Bush, Senator Alan Simpson of Wyoming, joining us in just a moment.
the 90s. The new Audi 90. To drive it is to take control.
Are we having orange juice with breakfast?
Daddy, of course we are.
Oh, these aren't the little glasses I'm used to.
Orange juice is good for you. Have a big glass.
Orange juice. It's got the vitamins, minerals, and taste that make you feel so good.
No bacon and eggs?
Nope. Bulgur wheat muffins.
100% pure Florida quality orange juice. It makes you feel so good.
I'll have seconds.
Another muffin?
No, orange juice.
Oh. I see many things.
Some companies go to great lengths to try to predict the future.
I see a ray of sunshine through a thick fog.
But the only way to succeed is to prepare for whatever the future brings. That's why Georgia Pacific has become a low-cost producer of wood products, pulp, and paper. It's how Georgia Pacific prospers in good times or not so good times. Because if you don't plan for the future today, you just might not be around tomorrow.
The rules of talk show hosting. Be sure to ask the easy questions.
What is the statistical likelihood of a meltdown of a nuclear reactor?
Repeatedly nod head and say, how interesting.
You can't beat that horse anymore.
Smile.
That's another show.
Smile.
Get that in writing, we'll have it notarized.
Smile. John McLaughlin, doing it his way. Tuesday and Thursday nights at 10 Eastern, only on CNBC.
Welcome back. As you should know by now, President Bush is going to lay out his blueprint tonight, however specific or general, on how to revive the U.S. economy during his acceptance speech at the Republican convention. Joining us tonight to help sort through the possible scenarios is Senator Alan Simpson, Republican of Wyoming, also Senate Minority Whip, a longtime friend of George Bush's. And joining us in studio tonight is CNBC's Ron Insana. Senator, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
How are you?
Have you been among those that have had a chance to see the president's speech ahead of time?
No, I have not. I don't think, I don't know of anyone who has. I saw Bob Teeter last night, and he didn't tell me a thing.
Have you had any input at all as to what should or should not be in there?
I have spoken with the president in the last weeks and told him some of my views. They weren't necessarily specific views, but I shared with him that certainly it was a time to let the American people know who this man is, in the sense of what he has proposed, like he proposed, and people seem to like these things. They keep asking me these things at town meetings. They say they want a balanced budget amendment. You can call that naive and make fun of it. I don't even get into that. Line item veto, capital gains tax reduction. I think economists realize that would be important. Enterprise zones. Every one of those, every single one of those, was gobbled up by the Democrat Congress, rolled in a ball, inserted with a piece of fuse, and sent back down Pennsylvania Avenue to blow up under his face. And I'll bet he'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
Bill, it's interesting. I've been speaking to some Washington insiders over the last few hours, one of whom suggests he has had conversations with gentlemen who have indeed seen the draft of the president's speech. And this, of course, would refer to last night's draft, and there are always last-minute changes. But one of the interesting areas that could be emphasized by the president is the veto power, and not just in a broad general sense, but specifically over the 13 appropriations bills that Congress has yet to pass for the fiscal year, in which case the president may come out with a very hard-hitting strategy suggesting that he will veto any spending bill or measure by Congress that would exceed the president's own budget targets.
Is that a strategy you would favor, Senator?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I think there are many people in America who are urging the president to go ahead and do it anyway, do it by executive order. But one of the problems there is that Attorney General Barr, at his confirmation hearing before the Judiciary Committee, said that he felt that was unconstitutional. So you've got that tremendous blockage there. But line item veto is used by 43 chief executives in America, including my state of Wyoming, and We had one governor, they called him Captain Veto, but it does get legislators' attention.
But won't that be fodder for the Democrats? Just earlier today, we spoke with Senator Lloyd Bentsen of the Finance Committee, and he talked about that very thing. Here's what he said, as a matter of fact. We have that.
Sure.
As chairman of the Finance Committee, we brought out a bill out of our committee that had in it 6 out of the 7 economic initiatives that the president was asking for. 6 out of 7. And he chose to veto that. And the reason he chose to veto it because we didn't also add capital gains. But he didn't pay for it. He didn't show how to pay for it. And the one thing we've learned, if you're going to cut taxes, that you have to pay for it. Otherwise, you just add to the deficit, you add to economic instability, to lack of investment, and to lack of savings.
So again, if the president is talking, or is apparently going to talk about some vetoes tonight of some various appropriations bills, you got Lloyd Bentsen coming back and saying, hey, we've done our part. The president then swings it back at us.
Well, Lloyd Bentsen is a marvelous gentleman and a lovely personal friend. And Lloyd Bentsen is the one who taught me that in Texas, politics is a contact sport. Lloyd Bentsen is a very wily and wonderful guy. Sure, they gave the president 6 of the 7 things he wanted, and then they loaded up the rest of it. The whole exercise for 3.5 years is to give the president what he said he wanted, load it with something which is so distasteful, like the wormwood and the gall for him, knowing he'll veto it, watching us sustain the veto, and then calling him a do-nothing president. We have, fortunately, 75 days to tell that story.
All right.
And Bill Clinton is proposing $150 billion in new taxes and says we're going to pay for it by $10 billion of it from a line-item veto, and his colleague Al Gore has voted against line-item veto about 3 times. Now, come on, get out of the bus, boys, and get down on the earth.
We're going to take a break here and let the band continue to warm up back there in Houston, and Senator Simpson will continue with us, so we'll have Ron and our chief economist, Bill Wolman, joins us as well. We'll be right back after this.
In today's business world, maintaining control is essential. And when it comes to controlling air travel costs, there's one system that's only for air travel. Has no annual fees, no credit limits, offers automatic insurance, and customized billing. The Air Travel Card Payment System, your corporate control tower. Call 1-800-854-9600. It's the smartest route.
Okay, Ted, here's your orange juice. You wait here, and I'll go get your breakfast.
There's nothing like 100% pure Florida quality orange juice with the vitamins, minerals, and taste that make you feel so good.
How'd you do that?
100% pure Florida quality orange juice. It makes you feel so good.
Life insurance protects the people you love. Health insurance covered your surgery. Car insurance guards the old jalopy. Your homeowner's policy even protects the chair you're sitting in. All you can lose is the nest egg that lets you sit there.
Sarah, and she's lucky, because today she'll encounter egrets doing dances and alligators in the wild. She'll see how other moms take care of their kids, and she'll be doing this, recycling, through a program of the National Park Service and its recycling partner, Dow.
We can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Together with the National Park Service and folks like Sarah.
Dow lets you do great things.
Presenting Enviro Energy Systems of Toledo, Ohio, citation recipient for the President's Environment and Conservation Challenge Award. Enviro was recognized for its internationally acclaimed Enviro soil process. This technology combines alkaline byproducts with organics from sewage sludge, and through pasteurization converts them into Enviro soil, an environmentally friendly organic fertilizer. The Enviro soil technology is now used at 33 facilities worldwide.
Capel, going through the roof.
Right.
Just came in from research. Red hot, my friend. Cannot lose.
It's not the time to sell. It's the time to
You
buy.
are the #1 call I'm making. Now,
You want to buy it after it goes up?
You want to make money or you want to play bingo?
Not only as a customer, but as a friend, okay? And that's from the heart.
Quick and Riley, a new breed of broker.
Welcome back. We are back with Senator Alan Simpson of Wyoming joining us tonight from the Houston Astrodome. Bill Wolman, our chief economist here at CNBC and at Business Week, joins us, and Ron Insana, our correspondent at CNBC, is still with us as well. Senator, you know, it would seem that the president is in a lose-lose situation before his speech tonight. There are those who call for him to be specific and dramatic with some proposals on the economy, but yet if he does that, he leaves himself open to Congress whacking him back the way they did after the State of the Union address. And if he's not specific and thematic instead, as has been talked about, that's not dramatic, and then maybe he risks not getting the kind of bounce from the convention that they're hoping for.
Well, I think it's time to stop strategizing and just get with it. And that's what I think you're going to see in George Bush tonight. I was talking with Martin Anderson, I think most of you would know him, who was a great economic counselor to President Reagan. Marty and I were speaking here. He said that a group of them, Friedman, I can't remember all of the ones involved, spent about an hour and a half with the president within the last 10 days. And he described what they told him was said to him with unanimity. What George Bush will do with the unanimity of whatever points they discussed, I do not know, but I can't tell you whether it'll be thematic or specific. I have not seen it.
But again, he's between a rock and a hard place politically, whether he's specific or not, isn't he?
Well, George Bush has been between a rock and the hard place for 68 years of his life. It is always fascinating to me, especially in a convention where you have 15,000 journalists and 2,210 delegates, to hear the turmoil of the pounding around as if there really were something important to report every 5 minutes on the hour. That's not the way life really is.
Yeah.
So I don't know what will happen, but I know that George Bush will give one tremendous speech. And even if he fell backwards off the podium down the stairs, he's still going to campaign the same way. Fully geared, let her rip, been underestimated at every point of his life. Every point. Been called a sycophant, lapdog, poop, boob, come on. When?
Right.
So, you know, here we are again.
Yep.
It's odd to me how, if you can live 68 years, I've been called a lot of things in life, but it's odd to me how you can pretend that this guy has not succeeded in life.
Senator, I know you have to leave us now, and I appreciate you taking some extra time and spending it with us, and we'll see you a little later tonight at the
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a nice honor. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Senator Alan Simpson of Wyoming joining us tonight from the Houston Astrodome. All right, guys, what do you think? If, for example, we do have the president talking about vetoes of the 13 appropriations bills out there, economically, what is that doing out there?
Well, look, I think there are two things that are certainly the case. Jack Kemp's great initiative to get the president to repeat, Reagan of 1980-81 is over. There's not going to be a big supply-side tax cut. It seems relatively clear. That's very important. Secondly, it's also clear that the Ross Perot, Warren Rudman, Paul Tsongas look at the world. All right, you've got to be responsible about the deficit is the one that's carrying the day with George Bush. George is going for the Perot voters, believe it or not, as well as some other people. So I think that's what it really means. If it does mean that, Bill, of course, it's a big thing for the bond market, as we well know. That's what's really going to happen out of it.
And if there's a carrot and stick approach here, it's very interesting for the bond market, because if the president, for some reason, suggests that tax cuts are possible and does so after a demand that spending is cut or that deficit reduction targets are met, then you have a general offset that's very positive for the bond market, as Bill suggests.
What does it mean, though, as you pointed out? It appears, and again, we don't know what the president specifically is going to say, but it appears that the supply siders have been beaten back.
I think
in
they
this
have.
battle.
Well, I found something that Senator Simpson said, interesting, that I didn't know. If the president met with Milton Friedman,
yeah.
He's guaranteed to have told him that Jack Kemp is a gimmick. This is a gimmick, Mr. President. Ignore it. You just can't get the economy moving by cutting taxes alone. That's not going to work. One of the great monetarists. That man is not a supply sider. Yeah. So if he did get weighty advice, from Friedman and other weighty conservative economists, they undoubtedly told him, you've got to worry about the budget, Mr. President. And I know that Milton would tell him, you've also got to cut government spending, Mr. President. That's what really matters.
And you don't have the kind of supply-side flexibility that you had in 1981. You're not going from a marginal tax rate of 70% down to 28%. You're going from maybe 31%, right, which is the high-end marginal rate, down to something even closer to 28, 25%, depending on what the current proposals are being bandied about among cabinet members.
But as I brought up earlier, if he's that specific with some of these proposals, Congress can come right back and beat him down, as they probably will prior to an election of some kind.
Oh, I think that's true, but that in a sense doesn't matter. There's very little time now between now and the election in terms of anything affecting the economy bills. You well know.
Is gonna be,
but at least he will have taken a stand. And the other thing he will have done, of course, is really confronted Congress, which he believes it's the president, it's the people's distaste for Congress is going to put him into the White House again. So he will have confronted Congress. He's found an issue, and it's very important politically, I think, though.
And there is that economic lever there. If Congress, for an instant, were to spend or propose to spend a nickel more than the president has proposed, he then has the lever to say, these folks are not serious about deficit reduction. They are the problem. I am not. And that is an interesting, at least political lever at the moment, to cast Congress in a far darker light than the president would otherwise be cast.
What about, I mean, we've been talking all this week about the expected bounce from the president and so forth. I wonder what the impact has been on the Democrats who have come out swinging this particular week, whereas during the Democratic convention, the Republicans went fishing, they stayed out of the limelight, and the Democrats had their say almost without any response. This time, it's been definitely tempered by what the Democrats have said, and I wonder how much that affects what the Republicans are saying about the economy this week.
Apparently what the Republicans are saying internally right now, after some of their own polls have been fleshed out in the last few hours and in the last 24 hours, is that indeed the gap has narrowed considerably, maybe a 6 to 11 percentage point spread now between Bush and Clinton, although each has his own respective pockets of strength in the country. Those numbers are not confirmed, but they are certainly being kicked around the convention floor right now, which is a very interesting development here for the president.
It also may be propaganda around. I mean,
very much possibility,
Similar our poll showing a swing, but it's not a major swing yet. Not really a major swing, so we'll have to see.
Back to Houston one more time. Our Donald Vandermark is there, has been all week. What are you hearing at the last minute about what may or may not be in that speech tonight, huh?
We are hearing that it's going to be a get-tough fiscal policy, just as you've been talking about. The president is going to say that he is the party, he is the representative of lower taxes and lower spending. We may get some enunciation of that kind of proposal. Of course, it doesn't matter. None of this is going to get through during the campaign season, and indeed, he may be out of office next year to push that sort of thing. The key question, according to George Bush's top speechwriter 4 years ago, Peggy Noonan, is whether or not he gets up and apologizes, explains the no new taxes break of promise. And she says he should. She says a scandal remains a scandal until it's explained, but I don't think the president's going to touch it. Back to you.
It'd be hard-pressed politically to want to do that. Thank you, Donald. Donald Vandermark joining us from Houston. Bill Wolman, thank you as always. Ron Insana, thank you for the work you did for us tonight as well. Finally, get this, another Money Politics news. Television's cartoon celebrity Bart Simpson talks back to the president tonight. During a GOP pep rally in Houston on Monday, you may have heard the president say that he wanted to make American families more like the Waltons and less like the cartoon family The Simpsons. Well, as you would expect, Bart is not taking this one sitting down. And in tonight's edition of The Simpsons, Bart is going to stand up for his family's values. Bart reportedly is going to say, and we're quoting here, "Hey, we're just like the Waltons. Both families are spending a lot of time praying for the end of the Depression." That's it for this edition of Money Politics Campaign 92. I'm Bill Griffith. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a nice evening.
I see many things.
Some companies go to great lengths to try to predict the future.
I see a ray of sunshine through a thick fog.
But the only way to succeed is to prepare for whatever the future brings. That's why Georgia Pacific has become a low-cost producer of wood products, pulp, and paper. It's how Georgia Pacific prospers in good times or not so good times. Because if you don't plan for the future today, you just might not be around tomorrow.
In December of 1990, Individual Investor featured Transmedia at $1.88. In just over a year, the stock rose to over $12 a share. In March of 1991, Individual Investor discovered Spartan Motors at $3.25 a share. 19 months later, it hit over $23.
We don't write about lifestyles or personalities. Our purpose is to find great investment ideas. Every article is written from the standpoint of should you buy this stock or invest in this mutual fund.
Subscribe now to Individual Investor for only $22.95. In each monthly issue, you'll find in-depth articles on stocks and mutual funds you won't see anywhere else. And we'll send you free II's Magic 25, the top stocks to